specific relative to the unknown energies from space subset that we've had since probably 2005.
Sure.
So not ill winds, because that comes from the Terra entity, but from the Space Code Farts entity, the unknown energies from space. It was, and it's also in the secrets revealed metadata layer. Yeah. So yeah, it was one of those.
Okay. We've got a question from Steve. How has running half past human and producing the Webbot reports personally affected you, and what is the linguistic theme that worries you most?
Well, it's personally affected me by making me depressed frequently every time I actually go to work. And it's actually, the truth be told, or the facts be known, let me put it that way. It has a very deleterious effect to produce the reports on a number of different levels on myself, the assistant that we call Igor, who runs the servers, and my wife. It's Kathy. It's been very difficult to maintain the production and for myself, because of the subject matter. The meme that worries me the most over all of this stuff is the 2012 meme. It's a lot broader than that particular date, and it has some very hugely negative archetypes. It's like our species is subject to fits of amnesia. We don't know what causes them, but there's a periodicity, and we sure seem to be getting close to the end of that periodicity, and then perhaps another kick into something that we may not recover from as a species.
Sure. JP asked a question, and I'll answer it for you, Cliff. Can Cliff comment whether the Freeman Sovereign movement is a society, I think is what he's trying to get across. In answer to your question, JP, Sovereign is not a movement, it's a mindset. It's a style of behaviour. It's it's inherent, it's in the heart. And when you get there, you'll know. Here's Robert. Robert asks a question: is it human consciousness that can help forecast future events, or do the birds and the bees fit in there somewhere also?
Well, they're not at this point contributing to the internet. So since that's mainly my tool. Indeed, all of consciousness participates in it, and I know that the animals and plants and stuff respond to future events before they occur. I have demonstrable evidence of that, but at the moment I don't have any way to tap into it, so they're of no use to me. Now, that being said, I am very much aware of the impact of all of consciousness being affected by the future of events, and know that even humans, those that are less psychic than others natively, also, or some of them have a tendency to pay attention to the things in their environment, and thus they pick up their clues from the bees and so on. So it's also interrelated, all is energy, we're energy, and their energy, so can't really separate it.
Sure.
But it would sure be nice if they would contribute to the conversation and we could get their words explicitly.
Yeah. Robert was asking about cyclotronic resonance, but I think that could be a lengthy answer. I think that could be a whole topic in itself.
That pretty much is. But basically, it gets back to the idea of if everything is energetic, and then you approach all problems from the viewpoint of the universe as energy, then you naturally run into specific design patterns that can be repeated in the broad sense for various different kinds of problems that will still produce an effective solution. Design patterns is something you can look up at like Wikipedia.
Sure. Sorry for all these questions. I'm trying to scoot through them
as
quick as I can. Jason Baldwin asks you, rainbow bodies and zones of advanced civilizations that appear in the near future.
The rainbow bodies is another descriptor set for what we can think of as our energetic body. These exist larger than your material body. The material body is a condensate within the energy body. So again, if you approach universe from an energy viewpoint, matter is like the expression that you have that is your face and your body is a condensate within a larger structure that is the actual you, which is the consciousness that is inhabiting the universe at the moment. And we do have data that suggests that after the something in 2012, 13, etc., which likely is some kind of a solar-induced event, that there will be a shift in terms of the way in which humans decide to conduct themselves on the planet, and will have the appearance of more tribal-oriented. If you tribal doesn't, the word is, the context is bad, but I don't have another one to offer that's better. But we'll have more of a tribal society kind of a thing popping up here and there. I don't know if that's a good thing, though, in the sense we just don't know what's going to happen in 2012.
Okay, okay. Hope that answers your question there, Robert. Dave asks, is the oil, the Gulf Stream, going to make UK and Northern Europe very, very cold this winter, as in a mini ice age?
I think we're in a period of oscillation. The Gulf Stream will impact it. It's not going to be a causal event. You guys have already had the beginning of that ice age show up in the extreme weather last year. The oscillation was described by some of the scientists of the 50s as being a precursor to what we're going to see coming out of the sun over the next couple of years. So, yes, I think that there will indeed be an ice age, but we may get to this weird period of time where you have 2 or 3 years running where you have just abnormal 1,000-year records being broken on cold, and literally between one day and the next swap over into a hot period that runs for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Such an oscillation between extreme hot and cold has always been part of the science of the observable weather of other planets. The suggestion has always been that you would oscillate either into an ice age and a cooling of the ocean, which would replenish life, or you would oscillate into a heat age, if you will, and end up like the theoretic greenhouse giant Venus, where everything is too hot and nothing really lives, as far as we know. But yeah, you guys are going to have extreme weather this year relative to cold that may not hold through 2011, but it won't matter much because you'll be as very much distressed about the warmth or the heat when it comes back, because it won't be warm. We're going to lose fall and spring pretty much across the planet and go into these just really weird amalgam seasons of wet and cold and wet and hot, or dry and cold and dry and hot, depending on where you're at.
Well, the first part there sounded like Scotland, wet and cold.
Well, same here. Up in the Pacific Northwest, it's always, 30 degrees Fahrenheit and drizzly, usually. But all of a sudden, on a particular day, we swap over to record-breaking heat with no spring in there. We went from, it was the longest period ever that we'd gone without rising above 70 degrees or 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a little bit warmer than normal house temperature. And we went from September of last year until June of this year before we had crossed that threshold. And sometimes in a normal year, we would cross that temperature threshold in February.
Sure.
So we're actually losing fall and spring. Unfortunately for us, we're getting a very brief 3 weeks of summer, and then the rest of the time is sort of this continuous winter storm.
Okay, I'm gonna scoot through the questions a wee bit quicker here.
Sure.
Mali asks a question: when do you think the dollar will collapse?
Well, it's already collapsing. I think we'll see two more, or one official devaluation this year, and then 2 more devaluations in 2011 that they probably won't announce. It'll just occur. So it's a process, not an event. By the year 2012, though, the dollar will be entirely redundant. I don't know if it'll be traded.
Right. Of course, then we've got this is just a sidetrack issue here. The United Nations agreeing on a basket currency. Whether it's going to be the Almero or not, we don't know. Right, okay, question from White. What are Clif's plans for the future, given your misgivings about it?
Well, I don't plan much. I'm going to try and get some sailing in before the weather gets too miserable. Beyond that, I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens as we get closer to November. If indeed we're looking at a situation that in some ways resembles the onset of World War II, and we were trying to plot the similarities between now and then from my viewpoint sitting here, November would represent to me December 7th and the attack on Pearl Harbor, in the sense that that would be the time that the U.S. would be drawn into it based on the amount of emotionalism in the language. If we get through November and through this next 2 months following that without entering into a global warfare, then I will say that we've got that much more of a chance to make it through the trials of 2011. But I'm not planning for the future. Each day at a time. So I got up this morning and said, "Yep, I'll go along with my plans to go to the tip this morning that I made yesterday." But some days I may get up and not go along with those plans from yesterday.
Sure.
So so they don't extend very far.
Right. Well, which basically leads us into the final question. What is going to happen in the next few months? And that is from Fractal Frank.
Well, we're going to be faced with the official slide into the acknowledgement of the word depression relative to the United States economy and pretty much the global economy. Just the mere fact that the powers that be minion class, all the politicians, are going to have to start twisting their mouths around the depression word when they've been rah, rah, rah recovery all this time is going to cause a big sea change in how the perceptions of the rest of the planet is going to how they're going to view how the populace will view the whole currency issue and the economy and so on, and that's going to put some big strains on things. Now, the powers that be plan for the Israelis to attack Iran during this period of time and initiate the reason for them to go to another world war, which I guess we'll call World War III or IV or whatever. That is their plan. Whether or not they're able to pull off that strategy, because their method is to strategy, it doesn't work, so they back off, reset the date, to try and tweak it a bit, adjust it here. They've been trying to get us to get rah-rah behind the Israel to go and attack Iran in the U.S. for months now, and it's just not taking. And they're running into not necessarily opposition, but I guess apathy to the point where if they can't sell it, we won't buy it. If we don't buy it, they can't do it. And so they keep putting off this attack. But they are now on a short string. They are going to have to do it by a certain date in 2011, or it will become redundant based on the other things that are going to occur relative to the economy. See, the idea is that they'll distract us all from the economy with this giant global war. And if the economy gets too bad, then all of the serfs rise up and walk into the manor house, sit down at a table, kick the Rothschilds and everybody else out, and we start all over again as a species trying to decide what we want in the way of civilization. That's what they're afraid of. They're very much afraid of a global political awakening, and I think that politics now has to be broadened to include this whole idea of interdimensional whoosy-was-its and parasitism and so on, and how the world appears to be run. So you can actually go to YouTube and look up Zbigniew Brzezinski, a big power player in the United States government, who is in a meeting, and he's on YouTube stating, in his own words, we are desperately afraid of a global political awakening that will remove all of us from power overnight. And if we're lucky, if we can move enough people the right way, that will occur. But in the meantime, it's like, looks like the Israelis are going to attack sometime this fall after the economy's collapsed enough where it won't matter. They can't attack right now, of course, because it would cause all kinds of problems in the markets. So all the in players have to be prepared, and they've got to make their positions and get everything ready.
Yep.
And they're about...
Hello, Cliff?
Sir, the currency. You got to go.
Sure. You still
Okay.
there? Yeah. You still there, Cliff?
Yep.
Yeah. You were breaking up a wee bit there. We've got one final question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And it was from a fella called Jay, and he asks if Cliff sees the Freeman movement or the sovereign aspect or concept in your linguistics.
Yes, I do. And that's why I've always declared myself as a sovereign individual. I use that term very specifically, the word sovereign, even though I know it relates and goes back to the serpent language and so on. It has a very specific context with it. And yes, I do see that within the linguistics, and it's been part of this metadata layer for planetary revolution, but it's not really revolution. It's going to be something else. We're going to have to come up with another word for it. I believe it's going to be successful, but that's merely my monkey mind. But I have noticed that the, if you will, the self-sovereign movement or the self-sovereign awakening has grown exponentially over these last 5 years, and I thought it was doing pretty good the few years before that.
Yeah, well, maybe